The outcome of the state legislative elections in India's West Bengal state, where the incumbent Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's Trinamul Congress party won with a solid margin, is seen by some as signaling a serious threat to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party's juggernaut that seemed unstoppable until recently. Although Trinamul Congress or TMC is a strictly West Bengal based regional party, Banerjee has had a fairly high national profile. Mayank Chhaya Reports will feature the Kolkata-based veteran journalist Kajal Basu to understand what the outcome means, particularly because Prime Minister Modi staked his personal prestige on it.
First, give me your perspective on the violence in Bengal. How bad is it? Is it bad the way the BJP is describing it, or you think there is a measure of exaggeration, but there is violence, right?
Oh, there is a measure of exaggeration, all right. But, pre-poll and post-poll violence in Bengal has a multi-decadal history. It didn't start now, it didn't start yesterday, it didn't start 5 years ago, it didn't start 10 years ago. It started in the 1960s. It was the playbook was written by the CPM, by the left front. And Mamata Banerjee just lifted that playbook, So things are bad, but they're not exactly as bad as they used to be in the LF times, in the left front times.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry?
No, go ahead.
And also what's happened here is that today, the death toll today in the post-poll violence is 12, out of which 6 are from the BJP, 5 are from the Trinamul Congress, and 1 is from the Indian Secular Front. The third leg of the Troika, the CPM INC Troika. So the thing is that the BJP is giving it back as good as it gets. Mm-hmm. It's cross-party. Everyone's indulging in it at the moment. So it's different. In that sense, it's different. It's also perpetrated by what we call the invading party. That's the BJP. So it's gone multi-party, it's gone cross-party. I don't know where it's going to stop. I think there is a deeper game afoot over here.
I see.
Which is trying to bring in president's rule through the back door in the state. So the BJP got walloped, badly walloped.
Right.
So Mamata Banerjee resigned yesterday from her chief ministership. She's to take her oath sometime tomorrow. Now, in the 24 hours between the two events, the violence is ongoing. And there is already a petition in the Supreme Court for President's approval to be declared in Bengal. That petition has been brought about by a couple of BJP lawyers.
Right.
So the frightening part is that there actually is a petition in the Supreme Court for President's rule in Bengal, based on the amount of violence going on at the moment.
Right.
Now, sitting in my home, I can't see any violence anywhere. But then I live in Calcutta. I live in North Kolkata. Yeah?
Right.
I believe there is violence, but it is not organized and it is scattered. Unfortunately, the media the media narrative is something entirely different.
Exactly.
It's been blown up to be something on a scale that it isn't really.
Right.
Now, if you connect all the dots, you'll see exactly what's happening here. What the BJP is trying to do over here, which is enter Bengal through the back door. I don't know if it's going to work out. Because if Mamata plays by the CPM's playbook, the violence is going to taper off tomorrow. The moment she's sworn in.
Right.
It's going to taper off tomorrow. There is a window for violence, for this kind of violence. And she'll call up the police tomorrow, she'll call on the police tomorrow. But meanwhile, yes, it's ongoing.
I'm a bit baffled by the onset of violence for the simple reason, having won so handsomely. What's the incentive to even connive at the leadership level? That even if you argue that the violence happens at a much lower level of the party. I'm sure the party can crack the whip and say just
Yes, of
stop
course.
this. Why is it? What's to be gained by after winning so well? Why the violence?
I think it's just electoral tradition in this state. Yeah. It's playing out victor's violence, what they call victor's violence.
Oh,
It's
wow.
taking out your anger against those who, the BJP, for example, it did put the screws on the TMC. There's no
Right.
doubt about that. The amount of money that's been spent over here is stupendous. It's stupendous. I mean, it's unthinkable the amount of money that's been spent over here. The amount of money that's been spent on the BJP IT cell for a disinformation campaign. Okay, the amount of money that's been spent on flights to and from Delhi. The amount of money spent on helicopters. The amount of money in setting up rallies. The amount of money spent in taking out yatras. The amount of money spent in building up roadshows.
Right.
I can give you an estimate, but it's only an estimate that's doing the.
Yeah, please do, because you are excellent at numbers.
It's in the range of rupees 10,000 crore to 20,000 crore.
Whoa.
Okay, that translates to between $1.4 billion to $2.8 billion.
That is extraordinary.
That is the amount of money that was spent by the BJP in Bengal. Okay,
so if you look at the return on investment from 3 seats to 70 odd, 70, 80, how many did they get finally?
They got 77.
77. But do you think it's a good ROI for the BJP? Because despite its defeat, they have made some inroads.
No, I don't think it's a great investment. They expected far more. I mean, what I've heard is that their coffers are empty now.
Oh, really?
They have to be. The electoral bonds coffers are empty. The other coffers that they have, the party coffers, they're not exactly empty, but they're not doing well.
It's a big hit.
It's a big hit. It's a massive hit. Now, the point is that the BJP wanted to win Bengal not just because of 2024, the general elections in 2024, but also for the reorganization of states in 2026. Now
right.
they wanted to maximize the seats in the states that would have the largest number of legislators. And they want them to be BJP leaders. I mean, it's okay. It's a growth path. It's a pattern. It's a growth pattern. It's fine. They were working towards it. But unfortunately, by winning just 77 seats in Bengal, that calculation goes for the toss.
Yeah.
Okay, that's in deep trouble. That's in really deep trouble.
Right. Another point that baffles me is that the Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, hasn't had a particularly stellar record in terms of lifting West Bengal to a different height. And yet she manages to perform way better than she herself might have expected as it manifests in the numbers. Why do you think that is? What's going on?
Actually, I don't think West Bengal is doing too badly.
Oh,
that's again a narrative that's been. If you look at all the indices, if you look at the developmental indices, you might not have great factories here. You might not have mega corporates over here. Okay, but if you look at the other developmental indices, child mortality, women's health, and civil matrices, you see that Bengal is far ahead than most of the rest of India. Okay, Bengal has the highest number of hospital beds in the country. In fact, it's international level hospital beds.
Right.
Okay. So it's 2.3%, which is very, very good. Okay. Infant mortality is very low. So the thing is that Bengal is not doing well according to one kind of narrative, which talks about development being linked to factories, mega factories, productivity in terms of producing FMCGs.
Right.
Okay. it's not doing too badly, but it's not doing very well in that. But in other development matrices, it's not doing badly at all. So the entire narrative about Mamata not having done much for the state, it doesn't really work because I live in Calcutta. I've seen Calcutta change in front of my eyes into the kind of metropolis that it is, which is it's tremendous. It's not Delhi level, but then no city in the country is Delhi level. It's not as spread out as Bombay, but by in itself, it's done wonderfully. Bengal is the safest place. Bengal is probably the safest. Kolkata, sorry, not Bengal, is probably the safest city in the country for women at the moment. Okay, the Bengal police are not all that bad. They're pretty good. So what I'm just saying is that yes, there is a lot of shortfall. She does have to make up for a lot. I don't know if she's going to do that or whether she even has the brains to do it, frankly. Because pulling back industries after the departure, the flood of departure, that's not going to be easy. But things are not bad. Life isn't bad from here.
There is already silly speculation on whether Mamata Banerjee for Prime Minister in 2024. I mean, it's gaining some traction if there is a coalition that takes on the BJP juggernaut. Do you think Mamata Banerjee is a viable prime ministerial candidate?
I don't know if she's viable as a prime ministerial candidate. I don't know if she can translate her success in the state or to a national level. But the point is that she's being exalted as prime ministerial material because of the failure of another party that we have over here, which is the GOP, the Congress.
Right.
Okay. We've all seen how the Congress has crumbled, literally.
Right.
At the moment, I personally would think that Pinarayi Vijayan in Kerala is a better prime ministerial candidate than Mamata is. So I do think that she has ambitions. I don't know whether it will translate to her trying for the prime ministership in 2024. There's no sign of it so far. Right. But she might not turn it down if her name is proposed.
Okay.
She's ambitious. She's ambitious.
Yeah. She is fiercely ambitious.
She is ferociously ambitious.
And then she has the brass knuckles approach that matches the BJP. So
yeah.
So if there is only one politician that the Modi-Shah combined might fear is her, for the simple reason she pays back in the same coin.
At the moment, yes, in Bengal. But in Bengal, whether she'll be able to do that with reference to the rest of the country,
that's a big question. Sure. Yeah, because she cannot scale up this approach without the TMC base in the country, right?
Absolutely, and the TMC might be a national party in the Election Commission's books, but on the ground, it really is a regional party.
It is.
It's a regional party, so it's a national party only in name.
Yeah.
So it's very. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's very she'll be able to translate her success in Bengal using the same tools, using the same mechanisms, using the same authoritarianism.
Right.
In the rest of the country, because I'm pretty sure of one thing though, by the time the general elections 2024 come around, more and more people are going to be sick of the way that Modi has functioned. That means authoritarianism is not really going to be a very good selling point, Right. And Mamata is nothing without her authority.
Another broad question that's been occurring to me again and again when I look at the outcome in West Bengal is, what is the extent of cultural resentment that the Bengalis felt vis-a-vis the Modi-Shah duo? Not just bringing in a different kind of politics, but Gujarati kind of politics. And I've always noticed that there is a degree of derision that a lot of Bengalis feel about the way, say, a community like the Gujaratis or the Marwaris operate. And do you think that there is anything in that perspective at all?
Not really. There is a nativist sort of resentment against outsiders, but then that's true of every state. You know, is there a resentment of the Marwadis? To an extent, but it's not very widespread because the Marwadis have literally assimilated themselves. You know, some of the old-time Marwadis who've been here for decades, families that have been here for decades, have assimilated almost completely. It's only the new Marwadis who stand apart. Now, the thing is that we all thought, I certainly did until a few months ago, that almost all Marwadis would vote for the BJP. Well, that's not the case. That
I see.
is just not the case. You know, it's not the case because, for example, take Bada Bazar. Bada Bazar in Calcutta, the massive retail complex, is 99% Marwadi. Okay, they know perfectly well that the running of Bada Bazar, part of which is extra legal, a great part of which is extra legal, has been allowed by the TMC. Okay, now whether the BJP would be willing to do that without extracting taxes from them, I don't know. And they weren't sure. So many of them did vote for Mamata. So there is, in a nativist sense, there might be a little bit of resentment here and there against outsiders. Mamata did raise a voice about Bohiragatu. Now,
Right.
Bohiragatu translates into outsiders in Bengali. But what she meant were not settlers, not people who settle here, because Bengal has always had people settling in. You know, not people who settled here, but people who have come in lately from the neighboring states and who are almost all entirely and completely BJP, and more importantly, are Islamophobic.
Right.
Okay, so those are the people that she was talking about when she used the word Boiragatu, which seems to have which seems to have burnt the BJP no end. You know, now she was talking about Islamophobes. Clearly, when she talked about Boiragato, she also meant Modi and Amit Shah, who, to everyone over here, is very clear about the fact that these are ultra-Islamophobes. Okay, they are not welcome here. They're just not welcome here. So the thing is, also, if you've been following the elections, the language that they used in Bengal. Now, Bengal has a very, very strong linguistic tradition. Okay, you can't come here without knowing a little bit of Bengali. With and whatever Bengali you do know, you sort of buff it up. You use northerner or north central cultural motifs and indicators. You know, uh, these make you stand out as someone who doesn't want to invest in Bengal emotionally or culturally. Now that put off a lot of people.
Right. I'm curious about what you think of the fact that now that they have 77 seats from three, does that make them formidable within the legislative, the way legislature functions?
Not really, no, not really. It does constitute a formidable block in the sense that they can lock up the legislature if they want to. You know, they can bang tables, they can walk out, they can lock up proceedings, they can do all that. But in terms of governance, they can't really do very much because she has an absolute majority.
Right.
You know, she has an absolute majority. So there's, in as much as the TMC can't do a thing in parliament on a national scale because of the BJP's absolute majority, the BJP can't do very much in Bengal because of the TMC's absolute majority.
Right. Right.
You know, but yeah, what they can do is mess up things a little bit here and there.
Right. How do you think she will change in her third term when it comes to specific governance ideas? Or you think she is convinced that what she has done is right and that's why she won?
But she is convinced that what she's done is right. She's not known for listening to advice. Just like Modi, she takes advice. She
Hmm.
takes advice, but she doesn't always work by it. You know,
Okay.
you can talk to her. Like Modi, you can talk to her. You can make her listen, but then she does pretty much what she wants to do. Now the
Right.
thing is that I do think that there is going to be a change in governance in the sense because in the sense of there is now an actually mobilized opposition in Bengal. Earlier there wasn't.
Mhm.
There is an opposition in Bengal. She will have to answer to the BJP. There's no way that she can get away with it. She can't ignore the BJP. You know. So what we've always asked for, I mean, many of us over here have always asked for is a stronger opposition in Bengal. But we would have preferred it to be a CPM Congress opposition rather than a BJP opposition.
Right.
So she obviously will have to change her way of working.
Do you see a trend in her rise as well? The rise, I see that there is a rise of sort of singular leaders across the world. Modi is a singular leader. She is a singular leader. She doesn't really brook opposition at all. In contrast, the Congress is struggling because it does not have a singular leader. Do you think that's a trend in India?
It is. I think it's a trend the world over.
That it is, yeah,
You
sure.
know, yeah. It's just it's history playing out. Political history playing out as it will. There will come a time when I don't think individual leaders will be as important as they are now. Also in India, because the next government I don't see if they do manage to upend Modi's dispensation, the next government will be a coalition government. It will not have a single leader at times. So even
Right,
if Mamata becomes the prime minister, she will not be a single leader.
right,
You know, she'll have to work by consultation. Anyone who comes in hereafter will have to work by consultation.
right. What's your sense of the outcomes implications nationally? There are already some, I read a couple of stories where it's being suggested that the RSS in Nagpur might be subtly propping up someone like Rajnath Singh because he was the first one
Yeah,
to congratulate Mamata
yeah,
Banerjee. And
yeah.
because the idea that so far Modi was tolerated because he was an excellent vote catcher, the juggernaut couldn't be stopped. It has been stopped now. So maybe
Yeah,
the
yeah.
RSS has some incentive to prop up a possible rival. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think there's a possibility there, yes. There's been infighting in the BJP with reference to Modi and Shah for quite a while now, for more than a year now. Uh, Unfortunately or unfortunately, this is the weakest they've been. Now, I think the RSS itself is changing. Now, the elevation of Husabali as the general secretary,
Right.
that is indicative because Husabali is a moderate.
I
He is,
interviewed him when he was here.
you did.
Yeah,
Ah,
in
I
fact,
have to,
he quoted the entire speech of Jawaharlal Nehru. I said, "Are you sure you are an RSSite?" He started.
exactly, exactly. He's an amazing moderate. I haven't seen the likes of someone of his kind in that senior position for decades.
True.
It just hasn't taken place. So he's the kind of person who's willing to talk across the board, willing to talk to inimical people, willing to talk to parties that don't agree with the Sangh, willing to talk with communities that the Sangh has been against for a very long time. Okay, so I do think that there is a change within the Sangh itself, and that is going to be visible in the way they relate to Modi and Shah.
I see. Yeah.
Because Modi and Shah's anti-Islamic tendencies just haven't played out well. They just haven't played out well. I mean, I'm not just talking about the CA and the NCR. I'm talking about what happened in Bengal, where 30% of the populace is Muslim, and who voted almost entirely for Mamata, and probably swung the election in a great many seats. Uh, their focus on Islam just hasn't played out well. So yes, I think there is going to be this opposition to Modi and Shah is going to increase.
Prashant Kishore has, I mean, it sounds absurd on the face of it. He's saying by June they will be ousted.
I take that with a pinch of salt. I would take that with a pinch of salt. This could be just mere rhetoric from Prashant Kishore. I mean, he's good. He's good at rhetoric.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'll be ousted. I mean, I don't see how they'll be ousted except during the general elections in 2024.
Not before that.
Not. I mean, what mechanism of ousting is anyone going to use?
Right.
It's not that the army is going to step in and declare martial law. It's not that Modi Shah are going to resign. It's not that there are going to be midterm polls. So I don't see that happening.
So that means for the next 3 years, about 3 years, they have the ability to turn the tides in their favor again. Because if history is any guide, the two are pretty canny at what they do. They may be able to turn things around.
I don't think so. I don't think things will work as in the past, because the government, Modi's government, has seriously muffed up many things. The latest being the COVID response mechanism. Okay, people don't forgive deaths. People don't forgive shortages of oxygen. People do not forgive a vaccination program that is gone for a toss. There are no vaccines available. I haven't got my second shot. My relatives, my family hasn't even got their first shots.
Oh.
Okay, so second shots is just not available anywhere. Hospitals are out of vaccines. People don't forgive this sort of ham-handedness. They might. Yeah. You can raise the issue of Pakistan. You can't do that any longer because Pakistan and India are talking now. They're talking about some kind of peace. Some kind of peace. There's an active discussion. There's an active dialogue going on over there. So Pakistan is lost. You can't raise Pakistan. China is lost. You can't raise China. There are no more shibboleths.
Right.
To raise over the next 3 years. I mean, exactly what are they going to raise?
True, and plus one has to remember that by the time 2024 comes, they would have been in power for 2 full terms.
And exactly. So anti-incumbency.
Say that 10 years is a pretty good indicator of what you're capable of, right?
Exactly. So there'll be anti-incumbency too.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be easy for them in the next 3 years. The economy has tanked, seriously tanked, and no one in government has a clue as to how to bring it out. They have no idea about how to repair it, whether or not it's even repairable. I don't think the government has money. The government it was selling off PSUs, even that has slowed down. So no money, no strategy, no plans. I don't see where they're going to go after this.
Right. Now it seems pretty dire at this stage.
It does seem dire at this stage.
Yeah.
Because certainly one thing is certain, things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yeah. Before I let you go, one question about now that the elections are over and it was sort of a super spreader 7-8 phases affair. What do you expect in Bengal when it concerns the pandemic?
You're going to get rear-ended by the pandemic. The 8 phases were disastrous. Okay, like the rest of the country, like the central government, Bengal is undercounting its infections and its deaths, and seriously undercounting it. The elections have just been over, so I'll wait for another 2 weeks before the uptick happens. But it's going to hit us. It's going to hit us really, really badly. Already it started spreading a lot. There's been, I mean, these kind of numbers, the ones that we're seeing now, 17,000, 18,000, 20,000 a day, we've never seen before.
Right.
And I think this is just the beginning.
I read, I heard on CNN, I think, which said that Calcutta had, 50% positivity?
Yeah, but then, I think I would really go by that, because it's 50% positivity of the number of people who've been tested.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
but that's the only indicator you can go by, right?
It's an indicator. At best, it's an indicator. Around me, in real terms, you don't see 50% of people infected by the virus.
Right.
A block that's been tested might show that 50% are infected. I don't know around me how many are pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic. I have no idea about that.
Right.
But nonetheless, things are bad. Things are very bad.
Well, all of you stay indoors and stay safe. There is nothing else you can do.
Yeah. Except that even people who are staying indoors are getting
airborne. It's been proven to be airborne, right?
It's been proven to be airborne. So even if you don't let people into your house, I have no idea how people are getting infected. People are getting infected and dying after the second doses.
Right.
People are getting infected and going into the ICUs and on ventilators after the second doses.
Yeah.
So obviously things are far worse. Yeah, they're extraordinary. Things are far worse than we imagine.
Sitting afar, one feels extremely helpless. I wrote a piece where I said that in fact, when I wake up and I find myself generally healthy, I feel very guilty. People are struggling so much in India.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I call the kind of anxiety that we feel now over here is, I call it the Cold War syndrome. What America felt, what the US felt during the Cold War, in many years, for many years during the Cold War. You don't know where the nuke is going to come from. Right. You don't know where it's going to hit. You don't know where it's going to hit. You don't know who it's going to take out. You don't know when it's going to happen. It might happen tomorrow. It might happen the day after. So that's the kind of syndrome. That's the kind of tension that we're living in now.
Right.
And it's killing. It's absolutely killing. Not knowing whether you're going to be infected, and if you're infected, whether you're going to find oxygen or how fast it's going to hit you. It's bad. Yeah.
This is nationwide PTSD in some sense. Yeah.
It's nationwide PTSD, and it was all avoidable.
Yeah.
It was all.
I don't even know what to say anymore.
The level of incompetence, And for example, I don't know if you've read that piece. It came out today, I think, in print or the Quint. 300 tons of supplies that were sent by the US to India, landed in Delhi, were handed over to the Indian Red Cross, and have not been delivered anywhere. No state has got any supplies from the US.
Amazing.
It's amazing. And the question, I think, was raised in a press conference in the US. A journalist raised it, saying that exactly what's happening with our aid. Where is it going? No one knows. Uttarakhand, no one knows. UP, no one knows. Maharashtra, no one knows. Bengal, no one knows. Kerala, no one knows. None of this aid it just hasn't been sent out.
Going by purely anecdotal evidence, once again, I caveated by saying that I'm sitting 10,000 miles away. I don't think we have a system in place for distribution in a very efficient way, right?
There is no system. There is really no system. But the entire point is, during a crisis, during a mega crisis of this sort, you damn well set up a system. You don't sit back and try to depend on old government systems, rusty old government system. You set up a system for distribution. They've been sent you 300 tons of supplies.
Yeah.
300 tons, okay, of medicines. And heaven knows where they are. No one knows where they are. So that's the kind of incompetence that we're seeing over here.